The quarterback battle will be a tight race in Indianapolis this summer, but if Daniel Jones wins, that could be a problem for rookie tight end Tyler Warren. We dig into the Colts' top 3 storylines entering the 2025 season on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Majuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinny Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. We are continuing our team previews for the 2025 season. We've already hit on the Texans and the Jaguars. It's time to discuss the top 3 storylines for the Colts. And of course, the quarterback battle is going to be the biggest story of the summer. I'm not going to lie, it's not the most exciting quarterback battle between Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, but it is the biggest quarterback battle we're going to have most likely this summer. And then who will be the number 1 target for the Colts? Will it be rookie tight end Tyler Warren? And which quarterback do we want to win that competition for him to have the most upside? And then we'll discuss Jonathan Taylor's potential to be a top 5 running back again. So let's start with this quarterback battle. Do you believe that Daniel Jones will beat out Anthony Richardson for the starting job? Last year, Anthony Richardson ranked last in completion percentage at 47.7. Brutally last. I mean, the next closest worst was 60.6% by Trevor Lawrence. His 8 touchdowns to 12 interception pass TD interception ratio ranked last among quarterbacks. And then his 61.6 passer rating was again by far last among all qualified quarterbacks. Next closest, though, was Daniel Jones. Now it was 79.4, so a good 18 point higher. But still, I mean, these 2 quarterbacks have been struggling as of late in the NFL.
Yeah, Shane Steichen has a history of quarterbacks and varied quarterbacks. He was with Justin Herbert for a time in Los Angeles. Then his prize people became Jalen Hurts. And they were looking at Anthony Richardson as being Jalen Hurts Part 2 in Indianapolis. Well, it hasn't worked out that way. Well, Bryce Young has improved, and he's had the job there in the same draft class. He's going to continue as the Panther starter. C.J. Stroud has been great for what the Texans want. Anthony Richardson still looking for his footing. And the one thing we know about Richardson, he came to the league very raw. He had high ceiling, but he hasn't tapped into that ceiling yet because he's had some injuries to slow him down. His rookie year was basically a wash after the first few games. And then he's still learning on the fly here, this offense. And I think the Colts are simply running out of patience here because they did invest a very high pick in Richardson. Want to see some of the results. And I think you're right. A lot of the stuff is just the accuracy and trying to do something in between. We know he can run. We know he has a cannon of an arm. It's all the other stuff like making the right decisions when to run, making decisions on when to throw deep versus just throwing the short check down or taking off. So these are the fundamental things that Richardson has struggled with the most. And Jalen Hurts accelerated with those areas, right? He figured those things out, and he became an elite fantasy quarterback and Super Bowl MVP. Richardson, however, has a long way to go. Daniel Jones has flashed. He's given us 1 year with Brian Dable as a starting caliber fantasy QB, QB1, finish in the top 12. But other than that, it's been brutal. So this competition is pretty much a redemption story between these two. Somebody's going to get forward and revive their career. If Richardson loses to Jones, this is it. I mean, he's going to have to find a second team pretty fast. Maybe the Jets will take a shot on him. Who knows with Justin Fields there now. But it's over. But Daniel Jones, again, I would think they're going to give every shot for Richardson to win this job. They want him to win it. He's the more physically talented quarterback, but Daniel Jones is a more experienced quarterback. He's had some success in his career getting to the playoffs and winning a playoff game. So there's some of that behind him. So I think right now I would say it's 60-40 in Richardson's favor, but that's not a kind of an endorsement, right? That's barely because he's the guy that's there and he's the guy with upside. He's the guy they want to win the job. But will he win the job? Let's hope he does, or this offense could really struggle because I don't think Jones is going to blow the doors off either. So Jones wins, it's going to be more because Richardson really was stinky and they can't win games with him. Versus the other way around, Richardson will earn it and you'll feel a lot better about this offense.
Yeah, if Richardson doesn't beat out Daniel Jones, then it is over, right? Because it's the same GM, it's the same head coach that drafted Richardson so early, knowing how raw he was. They benched him last year after only getting to play 4 games as a rookie with the injury. So he's only played 15 games in his NFL career, and he had such a limited collegiate career too. So he has not even played a full season of games in the NFL. So for them to move on from him so quickly after being the number 4 overall pick, it's like he should get every chance to win. And his competition is another inaccurate guy. Now, the difference between their inaccuracies is still huge, right? Anthony Richardson is so highly inaccurate and so highly inconsistent that even though Daniel Jones has been bad over the last few years, it's still so much better than what Anthony Richardson put on film and on paper and on the stat sheet last year. But you're right, like for this team to have the most fantasy relevance, I do think Anthony Richardson gives them definitely the highest chance, right? Like Daniel Jones doesn't throw touchdowns. I mean, we don't know yet if Anthony Richardson can. It started off hot to start his career with his 8 passing touchdowns in like 5 seconds to start his career. Sorry, it was 3 and then the 4 rushing touchdowns. But last year, the touchdowns went away for Anthony Richardson in terms of the passing. And with Jones, he's only thrown more than 15 touchdowns one time in his career, and that was his rookie season in 2019. So we need Anthony Richardson to win this. And if he does win the battle, the issue is I don't know if he's going to keep the job, right? Because I'd say then he would be he would have to be on our fantasy radar because of the rushing. But I really don't know if either of these two start the full season. I think they probably both get their shot because they're both bad.
Yeah, and the real thing comes down to, are they going to be willing to not have the hero ball? If they can't get it downfield and they're struggling with accuracy, will they just take the checkdowns? And that would seem to really help 2 receivers in particular, right? I mean, Josh Downs, who can get open quickness in the open field. I know he's a field stretcher too at times, but it really seemed to help him in the middle of the field. And Tyler Warren at tight end, their rookie first-round pick, because this is not going to be good news for Alec Pierce, who is looking for those home run balls, and that's why they put him with Richardson. And you also have Michael Pittman Jr. He's buried. So it'll be interesting to see what this receiving core looks like, but we'll explore that and what we can get out of these guys, regardless of who's the quarterback in our next segment here.
I will say, I thought at first that for Tyler Warren to be, really the safest and have high potential, I wanted it to be Daniel Jones who won. But now that I dug into the numbers a little bit, I actually want it to be Anthony Richardson. And I think he'd be better for all of these weapons. So we'll dig into the weapons for the Colts and our outlook on them for this next season right after we hear from one of our sponsors. This episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by the Gametime app. Buying tickets to your favorite events should not be stressful. Gametime is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. I'm telling you, the Gametime app has the cheapest tickets for sure. I use them for all of my events that I go to. And of course, I look around, right, for prices. They always win, always. And it's so much cheaper, especially all the fees at the end. So this is why I love Gametime. And there's many other reasons to like them besides just the low cost. You get a panorama view of your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. It's a super easy app to use. It takes just seconds to buy tickets. I'm super impatient, so that's great for me. And then they have the best ticket coverage in the business in case anything goes wrong. So you get to take the worries and the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Just download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, let's talk through these Colts receivers and if we believe Tyler Warren will be the number 1 target for the Colts, because I do think that's a possibility, right? They drafted tight end Tyler Warren out of Penn State, 14th overall. Very, very excited about this prospect coming out. He was the second tight end to be drafted, but no one thought that was going to happen. We thought he would go ahead of Colston Loveland, but the Bears liked Loveland instead. But I do think he's perfectly NFL ready, right? Like, I don't think he's a prospect that is raw in any way. He should be able to come in and perform immediately. and be leaned on by whatever one of these quarterbacks win. I will say, though, when it comes to Daniel Jones, he has targeted tight ends on just 13.8% of his pass attempts since 2022. That's the fewest among 37 quarterbacks with at least 20 games played. And only 2 quarterbacks were under 16%. And again, he was at 13.8. It was Daniel Jones, and I don't have the other person, actually. But when you look at Richardson, he targeted tight ends at 20%. So much, much higher than Daniel Jones. Now, the Giants just didn't really have good tight ends. So maybe that was it. That could definitely be a part of it. But that does worry me a little bit when looking at Tyler Warren's potential.
Yeah, we went from Evan Ingram in that transition to having Daniel Bellinger in there. And then you had Theo Johnson, who got hurt, a rookie last season, who had some upside. So really tight end was a big factor, but also hasn't been a big factor for the Colts, right? It's been a committee approach, basically led by Mo Alley Cox and a bunch of other dudes that they've shuffled in and out of the lineup. And they've drafted a bunch of guys with promise, including Will Mallory, Jelani Woods, all these dudes that have not materialized. But Warren blows all those guys out of the water with his talent. Right now, on the board, it's interesting. He was actually ranked in the top 12 before the draft, but maybe everyone's looking at this landing spot, concerned about the quarterback situation. Tight end 16, so he's a pretty good value.
Yeah.
And then you look at this other thing here, like look at where the receivers are ranked. Josh Downs is the highest ranked receiver at 46. Then you have Michael Pittman is buried all the way at 48, and Alec Pierce is at 58. So everyone thinks none of these receivers are going to do anything of note from wideout. So I would suggest Tyler Warren is going to be a big time factor, but maybe we just are not enthused at all about the Jones-Richardson combination, and we're just disappointed overall in this passing game, don't really want to invest in. That could be the truth, but I think if you're going to target someone a lot in this passing game, I think it's Warren. And that tells you why, right? These 2 quarterbacks are limited. They need to throw to a security blanket who's open. I mean, they're veterans, but they're under pressure. They know it. They've been humbled. They need to just execute and get things down at this point, because Jones was jettisoned by the Giants. He had that time with the Vikings. This is it. The last chance for him. Richardson was benched. So they got to take advantage of the new weapon that they have. So really, I think that could maybe determine the battle. Who gets the ball better to these weapons, especially Warren and Pittman. You paid Pittman a lot of money, so he has to be there. So I think Warren Pittman in the middle of the field needs to be a lot of what they do and less of this Downs Pierce shots downfield. So it'll be interesting to see how it breaks down, but I think that's exactly what Shane Steichen wants. He can't really say, I got a Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown on this team. I got Dallas Goedert, and I got to use him the way I did in the Eagles offense. So that's what I'm looking for here. So again, overall malaise and bad feelings about the Colts passing game, but that could also be an opportunity for some undervalue, especially looking at Warren right now. He's an absolute steal at that cost.
Yeah, and what I really love about Warren is how much of his production came after the catch at Penn State too. So It's not like you have to rely on him catching these deep balls, right? 56% of his receiving yards came after the catch in 2024. He's just a really good route runner and excellent in gaining those yak yards too after the catch. So that's why I love Sam Laporta coming out of school too. And Sam Laporta had a great rookie season. Brock Bowers was great at that in school. He had a great rookie season. But like tight ends, all of a sudden, as rookies, are starting to immediately produce. Not all of them, obviously, but we have now had Sam Laporta, Brock Bowers, and Kyle Pitts all have fantastic fantasy seasons just over the last handful of years as a rookie tight end. Again, another reason just to be worried about Daniel Jones. I brought up the touchdown issue with Daniel Jones, right? His passing touchdowns. We know those just haven't been there throughout his career. And Tyler Warren, for him to be, good, like a top 5 fantasy tight end, you're going to want those 7, 8 touchdowns. Now, Brock Bowers only had 5 last year, and he was fantastic. Kyle Pitts had, 1 his rookie year?
1,000 yards.
And that was a disappointing year because Kyle Pitts was being drafted so high. And so only getting 1 touchdown from him in 1,000 yards kind of hurt a little bit. But if he stays there at that tight end 16 cost, I mean, he's going to be on pretty much all of my teams. Even if I were to take a tight end earlier, then I'm going to just draft Tyler Warren late and stash him there to see what he's of. But let's move to these wide receivers because Michael Pittman's an interesting guy to try to rank. Last year, He was a wide receiver 50 and average scoring at just 8.2 points per game. But in 2023, he was a wide receiver 18 on average at 12.2 points per game. Now he's only costing wide receiver 48, like you said. He did deal with a pretty severe back injury most of last year that he just kind of played through, and it didn't really look like he could move. So was that the problem? He's only really, I mean, he's never had like a massive year. That 2023 season was his best at 1,152 yards. He's only had more than 4 receiving touchdowns in a season once. That was in 2021 with 6. So what do we make of Michael Pittman?
Yeah, he seems to be misused or misfit in this offense. Like, I see him as a guy that should score a lot of touchdowns. He's got size. He's a big slot dude. You reminded me a lot when he came out there of Marcus Colston there, just in terms of the kind of that hybrid tight end body. And Colston did have a lot of success back in the day with the Saints scoring. Like, he was a key element that they looked to in moments, but Colston was pretty reliable early in his career as a bit of a hybrid tight end wide receiver. And so Pittman, you look at him and say, look, he has the opportunity. Why isn't he not dominating targets on this team? Well, again, they would try to get crazy with shots to Pierce. And it's not just Richardson who fell into that trap. Joe Flacco was just bombs away finding Pierce downfield. Like, you can't operate an offense totally like that. It's good to be aggressive, and I hate the teams that do not throw downfield and are too conservative with the checkdowns, but maybe the Colts need to rein it in a little bit, right? Get your 2 best guys involved. Look, with all due respect to Downs, like, he is a good quick option, but Pittman should be there, number 1. So really, in the middle of the field between Pittman and Warren, you can cause a lot of matchup problems, right? Both those guys should get open playing off each other. So maybe this offense, unlike a lot of others, needs to come back more inside, stop going vertical and outside, use some open field, and try to take advantage of the quickness and strength and some mismatches you can create there. So that's what we're looking for. It's surprising to me that Downs is a little bit higher ranked than Pittman, but I think, again, those rankings indicate we really don't want a piece of the Colts passing game, but that's exactly when you want to buy low on some of these guys that could have value here. So we'll see how it plays out. I mean, the one thing I'll say, Jones could have a totally different go-to guy than Richardson, so it could be Jones and Pittman clicking, which would help, versus him and Richardson like kind of being off the same page here. So that's what we want to see, and it's just an interesting combination of receivers, but I do think that Warren and Pittman should be the beneficiaries most of this in the end.
Yeah, what scares me about Pittman is just his inability to, like, he's not known as like a great separator, right? Like, he has to make those contested catches, and Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson are just not the type of guys to give those type of players chances to come down with it, because they're inaccurate, right? So that's hard to do, to fit it into a tight window. And then, like, they need to see their guys open and to trust them. So I do get why Josh Downs a little bit higher. He was better last year, not by much.
Yeah.
But also in that ability, like, I do think it'll be easier for them to find Josh Downs and hit him more than Michael Pittman.
Yeah.
I don't really want either of these guys, though. If I'm going to take if I'm taking a receiver for the Colts, I'm going with tight end, and it's going to be Tyler Warren. And I probably will be taking him, especially at his current cost. But there is a running back for this team that's the best fantasy producer, and I do just think he's still underrated. He's right now Jonathan Taylor, running back 10 in consensus rankings right now. That's a steal, and we'll tell you why right after a quick break.
All right, this episode, Locked On Fantasy Football, is brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with the top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable for you and your business. This is the way that you can find that freelance expert to the right talent that fits what you need. Posting a job is free and simple, and you can get results within a day with qualified candidates to choose from, and it's cost-effective instead of hiring full-time. Upwork finds you affordable, top-tier freelancers, and they will help you scale your business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's Upwork, UPWORK, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. All right, Michelle, let us look at the one guy that we think we can rely upon quite a bit in fantasy from this team, and they'll need to lean on him based on his quarterback situation, based on having shaky receivers that aren't the rookie Tyler Ward. It's Jonathan Taylor. Like, I thought he was going to have a big year last season. He was let down by the quarterback play and a lot of things around him, an offensive line. A lot of things did not come through, and he was hurt again. And we had to figure out his backup situation was rather messy all over the board here. So, again, he needs to stay healthy. And you look at him, he was pretty good last year in points per game, RB5. He was down in the middle to late of last season, RB10. So I don't know if he's worthy of a 5-spot drop when really he's the main guy, and you basically have rookie DJ Giddens probably going to be battling for the number 2 role.
Yeah, I think it's way too low because you're talking about his, struggles. And a big part of his struggles last year was that middle of the season where he just went through that really weird touchdown drought. Like he could just not score a touchdown to save his life. And that's never been an issue with Jonathan Taylor. And then those came back to life. Like he was scoring touchdowns to start the year, and then they came back to life to end the year. And he's still, even though it felt like a down year for him, he was still running back 5 in fantasy points per game last season. In 2023, he was the running back 8 in average scoring. 2022, it was that down year, running back 18, and then that insane 2021 year where he was the running back 1 overall. But I do think running back 10 is just far too low for a guy that just turned 26 years old. He's already been a top 5 running back twice, a top 10 running back now 3 of the 4 last years. And they're going to have to lean on him like crazy with these quarterbacks. And both of these guys are mobile, right? So that should help him as well in terms of having space to run. But even missing those 3 games last year with the injury, he still had the 5th most carries in the NFL at 303 carries. He's going to get a ton of work. And in the 7 games, he scored at least 1 touchdown. He averaged 23.5 fantasy points per game. I do just think Jonathan Taylor is a great value this year.
Yeah, and he's one of those few guys is going to be a workhorse on his team. Like he can stay on the field on 3rd downs. He's very good at pass blocking, and of course receiving is one of his strengths as well. So you don't have to take him off the field. It's not like they have that Nyheim Hines guy yet. I mean, you have a bunch of guys that you could put in that role, but I mean, Giddens is a rookie, so we'll have to see how he holds up behind him. So it all lines up pretty well for Jonathan Taylor, and I think maybe people are just he's not exciting, right? He's not the Jonathan Taylor that went 150-2 and carries your team like he did in 2021. You're not going to maybe get that, but it's not his fault. It's really the nature of this Colts offense where the quarterbacks, do you trust them to keep moving it into scoring position for this team? Not at all. And then, unfortunately, the downside, it is nice to have a running quarterback to create that for the running back. The downside is they can also, instead of check down or hand it off late, they just go and take off themselves or call it their own number in the red zone. But with Jonathan Taylor, that's really where he's going to have to make his hay in the scoring zone because Richardson and Jones are a little bit more slight there. You don't want to necessarily have them pound. Like Shane Steichen's not going to bring back a tush push with either of these guys. Like you do not want to ram them into the line. That's just not going to be an option with Jones or Richardson. So the key for him, getting enough catches, getting enough scoring opportunities, both from the Colts moving the ball better this season and then handing him the ball when they're in scoring position. There's a little bit concerned. They did lose Will Freeze, a very good offensive line. He went to Minnesota, so offensive line that is downgraded a little bit, but I still think they're pretty solid up front. But Jonathan Taylor, again, if you just bang the table for him, it may not be exciting, but in the end, you don't need exciting. You just need guys that are going to be steady producers that are going to help you win games. And right now at RB10, Michelle, I think he's a very good value that you cannot ignore.
Yeah, and I don't think we have to be too worried about Will Freeze leaving because he only played 5 games last year before injury.
That was a problem for Taylor maybe last year that he could have had a bigger year. So
yeah, and then but it came through at the end of the year, and same thing with Ryan Kelly. He missed about half the season too, who they lost. So we'll see what it yeah, the scoring opportunities don't seem super enticing for him, but again, in 14 games played last year, he had 11 rushing touchdowns, and that was a really bad offense.
Yeah.
And again, he put up over 1,400 rushing yards in 14 games.
Yeah.
He's overlooked because there are just more exciting names out there that make splashier, like receiving plays, I guess. But I do really like Jonathan Taylor. I think he's super safe for next year, and he's a great value. That will be it for today's episode. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting. The NFL draft is over, but the roster moves and news never stop. Host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Vinny and I will be back tomorrow talking about the Titans. We're going to be finishing up the AFC South review and go through the top 3 storylines for the Titans. They have some exciting stuff with their rookie quarterback. So we'll talk to you tomorrow. Don't miss it. Bye, y'all.